And combining both access and accessibility, we end up with what we call the inclusive education. So combining both access. So if you were to design or create or select or work with an digital education technology that it is both have a lot of access and is accessible, then that digital education technology, what we can call that an inclusive digital education technology. Yeah. So this is both merging access and accessibility would give us inclusivity, essentially. And unfortunately, most of the time, it's not the case that digital education technologies are very inclusive. And how can we make them more inclusive, and how can we reduce these barriers? So there are multiple ways of at least, yeah, start the dialogue, at least to work on it, to take some actions. And I'm gonna explain them briefly. First one is about developing learning content that is accessible to everyone. So not that this is more intended towards teachers, instructors, but if you're a teacher developing learning content, you can do that accessible to everyone, especially to those with disabilities and special needs, to eliminate accessibility or barriers. And you can do that by taking very simple actions. For instance, to accommodate possible like visual impairment, you can add like, I don't know, you can resize the text to make it look very bigger, or you can be more mindful about colorblind students. Or if you want to accommodate a hearing impairment, then you can simply put captions on some of the videos. So even like the small changes that teachers can make in their courses can already make digital education, like the content and the learning content, more inclusive. A second point would be already like being mindful of the fact that people have different technological skills, like people have different digital skills, and different socioeconomic situations, different health conditions. Already being mindful of this fact is very helpful, because to deal with this, to cope with this, we can enable flexible access to these learning resources, and we can make them asynchronous so that students can use them whenever they have time, whenever, like at their own pace, right? By taking it easy, taking their time. I think this will already help a lot. And lastly, the last maybe solution that we can propose is this is not intended for teachers, but more like decision makers at universities who actually make decisions, who select digital education technologies, but considering this, taking this into account as a factor while making decision on the technology. This would help enormously, because there have been cases in the past where a learning management system was cited for accessibility challenges. For instance, they were not complying with accessibility tests. So if a decision maker already keeps that in mind while making choices in the technology, then we can eliminate this problem from the very beginning. So these are some ways to make the digital education more inclusive. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying these are definitive ways that will solve the problems perfectly. Definitely not. But I think they're at least good to start a dialogue. They're at least good initial steps that we can take by teachers, us, but also by decision makers at universities, like high-level decision makers. Last point that I'm going to make before we take a break, and is going to be about some of the challenges we observed in studies, in the papers related to social dimension. And actually, we conducted also research to investigate this. We asked a number of decision makers at universities, like what were the challenges they encountered, they faced while making decisions. And the thing that was that struck out most was about at least related to social dimension, was that privacy was considered a knockout criteria while making decisions. So if you are making a decision on any of the digital education technologies, then you would definitely prioritize privacy because of GDPR regulations, essentially. And you would definitely choose a digital education technology that would satisfy the GDPR requirements, which is great that this is being taken into account. However, this also implied in most of the cases that there was very limited focus on the other aspects of social sustainability, such as access and accessibility. So these 2 points, actually, they were not considered almost at all while selecting a digital education technology for a university. So this is, at least in the universities that we interviewed, there was a very small attention given to access and accessibility points, but it was all about privacy when it comes to social dimension. And then the second point is something we observed in the literature, and that is the social impact of digital education technologies. So because we have been using these digital education technologies for a while now, and it's also skyrocketed after the pandemic, obviously. However, we still don't know to a very large extent the social impact of these technologies on students, as well as perhaps on teachers, because there can be positive impact or negative impacts as well, but there are definitely some points that is worth considering, such as you might have noticed perhaps also yourself that digital education technologies can lead to reduced communication, reduced in-person interaction. It increases the dependence on technologies, right? So you become too dependent on it, and perhaps you don't know like how to learn, especially as students in different settings, not in online settings, but not and in different settings, and while not using any technologies. I'm sure there are also some positive impacts, but this is something we thought that could be given more attention to.